Welcome to the Morganize With Me podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Tyree, and I'm so thankful you are here. This podcast is designed to inspire intentionality through organization and simplification. I want to encourage and equip you to live your life more organized. Whatever your life season, I believe that you can experience more peace and more purpose when you live intentionally. Okay, we are on episode, the 4th in this spring series. Again, I launched these next two a little bit later, but it's all good. We're flexible around here. Blessed are the flexible, right? So welcome back to the Morganize With Me podcast. I'm Morgan Tyree. I'm so thankful you're here. I love that you want to live more simply. That is what I'm here. I'm here to cheer and coach you on and tell you that simplicity is freeing. All right, so today's episode, I want to talk about a new club that I'm starting. Anyone can be in this club. I may make t-shirts. I don't know. It's called the Intentional Shopping Club. Wow, right? So what I find myself doing when I'm giving advice, which I generally try to do only if asked, I promise, is I come back to this one tip over and over and over again when it comes to living an organized life. What I tell people is it really begins by being an intentional shopper. Boom, mic drop, right? I'll give you a little backstory here. So my first job out of college was for a store called Target. I'm sure you're familiar with. And I interned and then became one of their store managers. They have a management team, so I was on the team. I started out in marketing, did different hard lines and soft lines roles, and then eventually did HR. Anyway, I learned a lot working in retail. One, it's a very hard work, very physically demanding, but you get a lot of sense of accomplishment just by, making guests happy and serving guests well. But what I wanted to share about that time in my life is that through different meetings and trainings, one thing I learned is that a company like Target, and really it could be any probably big box store or what have you, one of their main focuses is to market to primarily women within a certain age range. We'll say late 20s to, late 40s, late 50s, something like that, because marketers and businesses are well aware that many women, a high percentage of women, are the primary shopper for their household. Now, I'm generalizing, but there is a common belief and understanding, and I'm sure there's data to support it, is that women, whether it's grocery shopping for kids' clothes, different things. And not to say men don't do that as well, they do. But I do think there's a real emphasis, and I learned this from being on the other side, on the retail side, to target someone like me, maybe someone like you, who spends a lot of time shopping. And really a lot of it's for need. We have to have milk in the fridge. We have to have things to make dinner with. Kids need things to pack in their lunches, blah, blah, blah. So it's not, there's nothing wrong that we have to be shopping, because shopping is what allows us to live our lives. But I thought it was so interesting at the time. Here I was in my mid-20s, very young, very little life experience. But I found that very interesting that they basically, this is no pun intended, but they are targeting us. They're targeting us, and they're targeting us well. I would have to say, and I'm assuming a lot of people would agree with me, Target does good with their marketing. All right, so with that being said, we all know we're marketed to. This is no new news for sure. But keep that in mind, that there is a lot of deliberation and intention to make us want to buy things, okay? So what I say by being what I mean by being an intentional shopper, what I'm saying by that is that, yes, we have to shop for need, for sure. Like, that's never going to go away. But I think where we get in trouble is when we shop for want, when we're just sort of aimlessly shopping as a hobby, shopping out of habit, just kind of mindlessly purchasing things. That's what gets us into trouble, or, creates more clutter in our lives. So I'm going to give you some of my tips that I use to help me be more of an intentional shopper. And I'll tell you, first and foremost, I'm probably not a big shopper, on the continuum. There's parts of it I enjoy, but there's parts of it that definitely don't interest me. So I know, you first have to kind of recognize where you fall on the shopping continuum. Are you someone that just finds it super engaging? Is it a form of entertainment for you? Is it something you do socially? Kind of know where you fall and then kind of factor that in as you kind of maybe reestablish some ground rules for yourself. So here's some things that I do. And I've talked about this before, but I keep in my notes app on my phone, I keep an ongoing list of things I need, specifically more like clothing items or if I need to shop for a birthday present for someone, but I just sort of keep an ongoing list. That way I get the clutter out of my mind and then I have it on, it's not really paper, but you know what I mean. And the nice thing about using the notes app on your phone or whatever type of device you have, but by having it in a digital form, it's always with you. So if you happen to be at the store, you can kind of multitask and maybe cross off something off that list. So deliberately write down those things that they probably will fall more into that need category. So this will help you be more intentional. Okay. Another tip, and something that I do, like for example, I try to grocery shop only once a week. And then for clothing, my husband and I for many years now have given ourselves just like a small monthly clothing allowance, if you will. And I typically, if I'm going to buy any clothing, I typically just go shopping once a month for that clothing. And so I think by being more intentional with how often you shop, that will also help you to not bring in excess. Because then if you're only going weekly, you're hopefully really filling up with what you need versus just kind of dropping into a store and picking up something last minute that maybe you didn't really need, etc. Okay. And then I'm not going to say you shouldn't shop as like a hobby, but I think you want to be careful. For example, I just got back from a short little trip and, we went through all different kinds of stores and there's lots of tchotchkes and just different things and, t-shirts and all the normal things that you can get when you're traveling or what have you. And, for me, I don't really struggle with wanting to buy those things, but I think it's important that if you might tend to shop as a hobby, that you maybe reframe for yourself. And if you want to buy something, whether it's some sort of memorabilia from a trip or, something like that, to be intentional about that. And for one example, when we lived overseas, we sort of got stuck in this dilemma of we want to buy things to remember the different places we visited, but we don't want to have all these, things that we have to display and that maybe don't mean a lot to us. So what we ended up doing was Starbucks, they make those different mugs that represent each city or area. And ours are the older version now, but we basically ended up, I think, getting about a dozen from the different places we visit. We just got one per place. And I honestly use one of those mugs every morning. So to me, that's sort of a win-win. And then it sort of made it easy for us when we were traveling because shopping wasn't necessarily just like a time filler, but we'd be like, oh, we've got to get our Starbucks mug. But it kind of gave us that kind of filter of well, yeah, we can look at all the fun things, but we don't need to buy more artwork or more things to fill the shelves. We're going to look for that coffee mug, So just be careful if you find yourself that shopping has kind of become a time filler or a hobby. Maybe ask yourself well, is this really the best use of my time? Am I bringing home things that don't really add value to my life? So just really, that's that word intention. I'm not saying don't shop, but just do it with intention. When you do it with intention, you're going to bring home the things that will intentionally add value to your home as opposed to not bringing value. Okay. Lastly, and I talked about this with the last episode with appliances, is that I think waiting for things, maybe we see a shirt or we see a new shiny thing we want, but if you wait and say, you know what, I'm going to give it 2 weeks and revisit it. A lot of times, if we give ourselves some margin of time, our opinion, our thoughts, and our feelings about fill in the blank, they change. And so I think that desire to buy in the moment can sometimes do us a disservice. So don't be afraid to just kind of give yourself some time. And another easy, simple tool to use like this is to take your cart. Let's say you're in Target. Let's go back to Target. Who's not going to want to go back to Target? They know what they're doing marketing wise. So you grab your cart, you're going through Target, you're putting things in. Great, you're having fun. But then reevaluate the cart before you go to checkout. Maybe you don't need that new candle. Maybe that little, thing from the dollar bin really isn't going to add a lot of value, whatever it might be. and reevaluate. Did you really shop from a list, or were you just kind of shopping to shop? So waiting and sort of using that cart as a holding period can help too. All right. So let me know if you want to join the Intentional Shopping Club. Would you wear a t-shirt? Maybe we should make a little jingle. I don't know. But just tell yourself, as you walk into a store, as you head online to go to Amazon, wherever you shop, whatever you do, ask yourself the question, is this an intentional purchase? Of course, you don't have to be asking this for every, bag of produce you buy or, meat for dinner. I'm talking about those things that tend to fill up our homes and maybe don't always bring the value that we had thought they might. So there are my thoughts on the Intentional Shopping Club. I hope you join the club. I hope you become a proud member. Thanks for listening. And as always, happy organizing.